97 out of every 100 people are drifting, not because they choose to fail, but because they never chose to succeed. It's like being aboard a ship that has left the harbor, calm seas, a gentle wind, but with no map, no compass, and no destination. The journey feels peaceful, yet aimless. You see, most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they never chose to succeed. They wake up at the same time each day, follow the same routine, wear the same clothes, drive the same route, all without once asking themselves why. They're not asleep, but they're not truly awake either, and the tragedy is not that they're unwilling, but that no one ever told them the truth, that life must be lived with intention. Picture a man working hard in a factory. He's punctual, dedicated, responsible. He puts in his hours and follows instructions. But he's never once stopped to ask what his work is leading him toward. He's busy, but being busy is not the same as being productive. He's in motion, but motion is not progress. This is the invisible trap. A routine without purpose is like a broken clock, still ticking, but no longer measuring time. It creates the illusion of movement, while quietly stealing the years. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself whether you're living according to a plan, or simply drifting in the current of what the world expects? Modern life is a master of distraction. Notifications, obligations, and noise flood our days, but rarely do we receive a moment of stillness to ask the deeper questions. And there's a reason for that. Thinking requires effort. Choosing a purpose requires even more. So 97 out of every 100 people never choose. They follow what was chosen for them. They work where someone else told them to work. They live how the crowd lives. They chase the dreams suggested by television. Without knowing it, they surrender the steering wheel of their lives to the quiet tyranny of routine. But here's the good news. The moment you see the trap, you are no longer trapped. You don't need to abandon your life or start from scratch. Number. The escape begins with something far more subtle: awareness. A simple pause, a single question each morning. Am I moving towards something I truly want, or simply going in circles? That one moment of reflection, that choice to think, places you among the 3%. Because while the 97% keep walking with their eyes closed, the 3% stop to study the map. And that makes all the difference. Have you ever driven to a familiar place, arrived, and then realized you remember almost nothing about the journey? You changed lanes, stopped at red lights, made all the right turns, and yet your mind was somewhere else entirely. That is the silent power of mental autopilot. And it doesn't just happen behind the wheel, it happens in life. Most people go through their days with their minds locked in a loop of repetition. They are awake, but not alert, active, but not aware. They think they are choosing when in fact they are merely reacting. This condition, this autopilot state, begins not in adulthood, but early in life. From childhood, most are taught what to think, but not how to think. They're rewarded for memorization, not for imagination. They're praised for obedience, not for vision. So by the time they reach adulthood, they've been trained to follow, not to lead, even in their own minds. So what happens? They follow the same thoughts today that they thought yesterday, the same worries, the same doubts, the same beliefs, like a phonograph playing the same song over and over again. You see, the human mind is the most powerful mechanism in the known universe. But if it is not directed, it defaults to the path of least resistance. It conserves energy. It chooses comfort over clarity. It avoids questions that might disrupt the status quo. Why? Because thinking deeply, consciously, deliberately, that takes effort, and the world around us rarely encourages it. Ask yourself, when was the last time you set aside 20 minutes just to think? Not to consume, not to scroll, not to react, but to think. The average person spends more time choosing what to eat than choosing what to believe, more time planning a weekend than planning a life. And that is how they fall into the trance. Mental autopilot is not stupidity, it is passivity. It is intelligence that has gone unused, creativity that has gone quiet, potential that has gone unnoticed. But the antidote is as powerful as it is simple. It is awareness. Awareness of your thoughts, awareness of your choices, awareness of your beliefs. When you begin to observe yourself, not in judgment but in curiosity, you awaken something vital. You take back the controls. You stop reacting and begin choosing. Because here is the great secret. Your mind will follow whatever master you give it. If you do not instruct it, the world will. If you do not question it, it will assume. And if you do not lead it, it will drift. The difference between a wandering mind and a guided one is the difference between drifting and sailing. Most people are passengers in their own lives, but you can choose to be the captain. There's a difference so subtle, so quiet that most people never notice it, yet it defines the course of every life. It is the difference between reacting and deciding. Most people don't live by decision, they live by reaction. They respond to life as it happens to them. Circumstances dictate their attitude, news dictates their thinking, pressure dictates their pace. Like a leaf carried by the wind, they move, but they don't steer. And it begins the moment they wake. They reach for the phone, not with purpose but by reflex. They see messages, headlines, the noise of the outside world, and without even realizing it, they begin to react. React to expectations, react to demands, react to comparison, fear, urgency. But deciding, truly deciding, is something entirely different. To decide is to pause, to think, and then to choose based on principle, not pressure. It is not driven by what the world says you should do. It is driven by what you have chosen to do, not as a whim, but as a direction. Think of it like this. When you react, you're a thermometer. You reflect the temperature around you. But when you decide, you become the thermostat. You set the temperature. Have you ever noticed how often people say things like, "I didn't have a choice. I had to do it." That's just how it is. These aren't statements of freedom, they are signs of surrender. The truth is, in nearly every situation, we do have a choice. We just fail to pause long enough to find it. A man who reacts is driven by habit. A man who decides is guided by values. One is ruled by emotion, the other by vision. This doesn't mean every decision is easy, far from it, but that's the very reason it's powerful. Decision demands courage. Reaction only requires speed. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you made a real decision, one that took time, thought, perhaps even discomfort? And what might happen if you began each day not by reacting to the world, but by deciding who you will be in it? Here is something to remember. Life responds differently to the man who decides. Opportunities recognize him. People trust him. The world moves for the one who moves with intention, because he is not waiting to be told what to do. He already knows. We live in a world that has mastered the art of noise. Noise in our pockets, noise on our screens, noise in our thoughts. At any given moment, the average person is being pulled in a dozen directions, all of them urgent, none of them truly important. And in the midst of all this, clarity becomes a rare and precious thing. Have you ever sat in silence and felt uneasy? Not because anything was wrong, but because we've become strangers to stillness. The modern world trains us to seek stimulation, not reflection, to chase information, not understanding. But without clarity, we live scattered. We confuse activity with achievement. We confuse knowing about things with knowing what matters. And that confusion costs us our most valuable asset, direction. Clarity does not come from adding more. It comes from removing what is not essential. Imagine a glass of muddy water. The more you stir it, the cloudier it becomes. But if you leave it still, the sediment settles and the water clears. The same is true with the mind. The first step to clarity is not to do more, but to pause more. Even a few moments each day, away from the noise, can restore your inner compass, not to escape life, but to re-enter it with your eyes wide open. Many people fear silence because in silence they meet themselves. And that's where clarity begins. In asking questions the world never prompts, what do I truly want? What am I doing that doesn't align with who I am? What am I tolerating that I would never advise my child to accept? Those are uncomfortable questions, but they are also the gateway to truth. You see, clarity is not found. It is created by removing distractions, created by choosing focus, created by saying no to what is good in order to say yes to what is great. Most people treat clarity like a luxury, but it is not a luxury. It is a responsibility, because without it, we become servants to whatever calls the loudest. And here's the secret. The things that shape your life most rarely shout. They whisper. Your values, your vision, your deeper knowing. These do not compete with the noise. They wait patiently behind it. And they can only be heard when we stop long enough to listen. So take the time, not just once, but every day. Clear the clutter, guard your mind, protect your time. Because clarity is not just for monks and philosophers. It is the birthright of anyone who wishes to live deliberately. If there were a single habit, a quiet, daily act, that could lift a man from the 97% who drift into the rare few who thrive, would you adopt it? The truth is, there is such a habit. And it isn't complex. It isn't glamorous. It won't be advertised to you, but it holds the power to change everything. It is the habit of thinking on paper. Now, this may sound too simple to matter, but simplicity often disguises power. Every morning or every evening, sit alone with a blank sheet of paper and write. Not what the world demands from you, but what you demand from yourself. Write your thoughts, your questions, your intentions. Write what confuses you, what inspires you, what you fear, what you desire. No filters, no rules, just you and the truth. You see, when a man writes, he makes the invisible visible. His thoughts, once scattered, take form. His direction, once cloudy, begins to clarify. It's as if the fog lifts and he begins to see himself. Most people never do this. They carry their thoughts like a tangled ball of string, always with them, always tightening. But when you write, you untangle the knots. You gain perspective. You take back control. This habit, done daily, is like sharpening the blade before cutting, like setting the sail before catching the wind. It is not time wasted, it is time redeemed. The 3% who thrive are not necessarily more intelligent, they are more intentional. They don't allow their days to begin by accident, they begin with reflection and then proceed with purpose. Think about this. Every extraordinary achievement you admire began, at some point, as a quiet idea written down by someone who believed it mattered. Writing is not just for poets and authors, it is for thinkers, and every man or woman who seeks to live deliberately must become one. Even 5 minutes with a pen can recalibrate an entire day, because in that moment, you step out of the noise and into your own authority. You are no longer reacting, you are creating. You are no longer drifting, you are directing. So if there's one thought I'd leave with you today, it's this. In a world where most rush to speak, few dare to think. Be among the few. Take the time. Ask the deeper questions. And when the answers begin to form, write them down. Because clarity, direction, and success do not come from chance. They come from choice, and every day, that choice is yours.